Bum. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Q&A. Welcome to everybody here live. Welcome to everybody watching the replay. I was just about to launch into some information about the 4-week More Muscle Challenge as a little bit of housekeeping before we start. It is the challenge which is happening right after Butt Camp. And I'm actually really excited about this because I don't know about you, but I'm kind of fed up doing cardio-based workouts. I'm like, I don't need to lose any more body fat. And the active rest, it's wonderful, but like I'm ready to just have like a proper rest now during my workouts. So I'm really excited about the More Muscle Challenge because it's what I want to focus on at the minute. I have changed my whole body shape. I've actually lost a lot of muscle in different areas intentionally, put on muscle in other areas. So my body is a completely different shape. But I'm now at the point where I definitely want to focus on building a bit more muscle. So anyway, I just create programs for me, by the way, and then you all buy them. That's just how it happens. I go, what would I like to work on next? I think I want bigger glutes. And then I create the program. And then because I get bigger glutes, you'll get bigger glutes. And then if I decide I want more muscle, well, then I just work on more muscle and then you will get more muscle. So it's great. We just do it all together. I just clearly can't do anything by myself. I have to have an entire team of people doing it with me. Otherwise, I am not motivated. So I just started recording the More Muscle Challenge. I did 2 workouts yesterday and 2 workouts today, which let me tell you, when you're recording workouts with your heaviest weight, which is what I've been doing, like 220 kilo, 44-pound dumbbells in each hand, 4-foot elevated lunges, dear God almighty. And then you have to do another one straight after. It really just adds a whole other level of hell to your workouts. So if I am not completely buff at the end of this, there's going to be something seriously wrong. So, I started recording all those today, which is really exciting. And that's why I look really shiny. So that was actually the whole point of me saying why I look really shiny, because I was definitely sweating quite a lot doing them. But you're going to love them. They are so, so, so good. 30 minutes in and out, top to bottom, finish really fast, a minute's rest between each set, fewer exercises, real simple, solid muscle building exercises that just get results, and you guys are just going to love it. So when is it opening? 9th of March. So opening for sale on the 9th of March. We are going crazy at the minute trying to get the videos edited. So the videos may not be available until the challenge actually starts, which is the 16th of March. So challenge starts officially 16th of March. I'm almost cautious to say that because I'm like, what if we don't have all the videos edited? But we should do. Our team is working overtime getting them edited. So that's good. Right. What else do I want to tell you? Nothing. I want to get started with the questions. There's actually only like 7 questions today. So I don't know what's happening, whether you're all like half dead or whether you, loads of you just fallen off the wagon, or maybe have every single question answered and you don't really need me anymore, which is the whole point actually of what I do. It's like, I need you to get to a point where you don't need me anymore, because then my work here is done. So, but otherwise, let's get through the questions. You know me, I can always drag 7 questions out to the last like 60 seconds. It's a real special talent that I have. So let's get started and let's see what we have here. So Elizabeth Teresa has the first question. She says, hello, Kim. Hello, Elizabeth. I have to keep letting people in because my PA, Natasha, she had to nip out and she normally lets people in. Please, any suggestions or tips you could give for a woman with an androgen body type? As you know, fat accumulates mostly on the torso. In my case, upper back significantly reduced 2.5 centimeters, less under the bust in the last month. I wasn't measuring it before. But abdominal perimeter remains almost untouched. I am aware that it will be the last fat to lose, but if you've got any tips, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you in advance. So good news and bad news, right? And rather than kind of giving you bad news or good news, I'm just going to give you more data. I've spoken about this a lot, so apologies to anybody who has heard this before, but I think it's always good to hear it again. So as a woman, especially a woman in menopause or perimenopause, what happens is our body tries to store fat around our middle. And the reason why it does this is because the fat around our middle, around our belly button, around this whole area is very metabolically active. So it is fat that can produce hormones, basically. Your body does not want to get rid of hormone producing fat whenever you are in perimenopause or menopause, basically over the age of 35. Your body is very resistant to getting rid of that fat because your body perceives it needs that fat in order to keep producing estrogen, because the cells, the metabolically active fat cells around your middle, produce estrone, which is a much weaker form of estrogen. So unfortunately and terribly unfairly, your body will burn fat from the soles of your feet, from the back of your hands, from your earlobes, okay? Rather than burn away that fat in your belly. It is almost as if it will only strip away that fat as a very, very last resort. And I have personal experience with this because I didn't start training in the gym until I was 37. And I had had 4 kids by the time I was 37. And I was pretty skinny all over my body because I decided after I had my 4th child, Jack, that I was going to get into really, really good shape. But me getting into really good shape meant the only thing I understood about being in really good shape was losing body fat. So I just dieted and dieted and dieted. I was a yoga teacher at the time. I wasn't training in the gym, but I was teaching about 3 to 4 hours of yoga a day, or 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And I was also doing my own personal practice. So I was doing an enormous amount of yoga. My body was extremely flexible. And I had kind of, it was strong. I had really strong core, as you can imagine, but I definitely didn't have any, huge muscular definition. But the funny thing was that no matter how skinny I got, and there was at one point I got really skinny, right? I was really dieting hard, and I got really skinny on my legs, really skinny on my chest, a really, really bony chest, really skinny on my back and my arms, and I still had fat around my belly button. And I was like, what do I need to do to get rid of this? Like, why will my body not get rid of this body fat? All I wanted was abs. So which is why I can relate to all of you women. You're like, I just want abs for the first time in my life, or just one more time before I die. I just want abs, right? And you're like, I will do anything to have abs. And you diet and you diet and you diet. And you're so afraid of, eating too much to build too much muscle because, if you put on too much body fat, then, that's moving you away from the holy grail of the thing that you most want, which is abs. And so you just don't, you're so afraid of not having it that you're just, afraid to put on more body fat and to, build muscle and whatever else. Or you just maybe don't know what you need to do. This was me. I was like, I just want abs. And at one point I got so incredibly skinny, like really incredibly skinny. And I still had, now don't get me wrong, it wasn't huge. You'd look at me now and go, Kim, if I had that stomach, I would be delighted. But I did not have a 6-pack. I did not have any definition in my abs. My abs were not what they are now. And I really was like, I can't get any skinnier. It was funny. I looked in the mirror one day, and loads of you will have heard this story. I walked past the mirrors in my yoga room. I had 3 big mirrors on the wall. I walked past wearing a thong and a sports bra to get something out of one of the drawers. And as I walked past the mirror, the sun was streaming in through the window. And I realized it was April and it was going to be bikini season soon. And so I turned to look at my glutes in the mirror, and I looked at them and I thought, oh, no, 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 no. It just looked like a sad old woman's butt. Like a really old woman. They don't really have a butt. Their butt's just flat, and it kind of, the skin has gone a wee bit wrinkly and they've no more fat pads in it. That's what my butt looked like. And I realized in that moment, I was like, oh shit, in my quest to get abs, I have dieted away any fat that I have on my body. And now my I may have a reasonably fat stomach, but my ass looks terrible. And that's what prompted me to start in the gym. Like, I downloaded a gym program the next day and started in the gym. And so that's what prompted me to start building muscle. And I forgot about abs then, right? And I became obsessed with my ass. So my glutes became the thing I became obsessed with. I was like, I don't actually care about abs anymore. I just want to have a butt. So I started training in the gym, and I realized that I loved it. I then decided to train for bikini competition. I stood on stage a year later. And still, when I was on stage a year later, after having dieted, trained, I still didn't have abs. Like, I was looking at some women on stage going, why do they have a visible 6-pack? And I still have a pinchable layer of fat around my stomach. Like, you could pinch it. And I was in a bikini competition on stage with a shredded back, right? And veins on my chest. And my legs weren't, completely shredded, because it was always a hard thing for me to shred. And I was just like, why? Like, it's so unfair. But I was still focused on the booty. I wasn't as focused on the abs. So I just got my head down and got to work. So I trained really hard for another year between 2017, 2018. And then I dieted again for the stage in 2018. And this time I decided I was going to stand on stage, and bloody well, I was going to have abs, right? That I was obsessed with having abs and really good legs. So I dieted like a mofo. I was miserable most of the time. I got down to about, I want to say, 10% body fat. Like, I had veins everywhere, veins on my chest, veins running down the sides of my abs. I had veins all over my back, but I still did not have really shredded legs. which really upset me because I had worked so hard on them. And I still did not have abs. Yes, my abs were a lot flatter, but I still had a little tiny circle, like donut circle of belly fat around my, or fat around my belly button. Now, but here's the thing, the interesting thing. I was like, interesting. I still have that, but it's a lot less than last year. And that's really interesting. And then I realized that when I'd stood on stage the year before, it had been a lot less than the year before. And I remember thinking, oh, interesting. The fat on my stomach is gradually going away. And the only thing that I've done is focus on building muscle for 2 solid years. So then I went to train with Mark Getty and I went into super duper muscle building mode on steroids, on virtual steroids. And I built the most enormous set of legs you have ever seen. And I stood on stage in 2019 with visible abs and visible shredded legs. And the only thing that changed was the amount of muscle that I had in my body. The amount of muscle, that was it. Nothing else changed. I didn't diet any harder. In fact, I dieted less hard for that show. I didn't diet any harder. I didn't do any extra cardio. I didn't change my workouts. I did nothing. The only thing I did was keep my workouts consistent because I started training with Mark Getty. So with the same workouts every single day. So I consistently showed up to the gym 5 days a week. I consistently trained to failure. I consistently ate good, nutritious, regular food, really focusing on protein. Didn't take any crazy supplements or anything, but I just focused on solid muscle building. And I started training in 2016, I started training to 2019. It took me 3 years of solid, hard, consistent muscle building. And I finally got rid of the fat on my stomach. So what I always teach women now is, in order to get rid of the fat on your stomach, in order to get rid of any of the fat on your body that you want to get rid of, you have to build enough muscle consistently over a period of time that not only does your body start to trust you, like, okay, she's consistently eating well, she's consistently training well, she's consistently building muscle, but that you raise your metabolism enough that your body continues to burn body fat even at rest. Muscle is very calorie hungry. The more muscle you have, the more fat your body will burn, because your body will burn more calories. The muscle will consume more calories even at rest. And so I see this all the time now with women. I have a group of 3,700, nearly 3,800 women on Telegram, all talking about peptides. And whenever the biggest thing that comes up when people direct message me, which they do a lot, they say, I really need some help. My weight loss has stalled. I've been on 15 milligrams of tirzepatide a week, which is the highest dose of tirzepatide. So 60 milligrams a month. And my weight loss has stalled. I can't lose any more body fat. And I say to them, okay, how many times a week are you strength training? And they go, well, I've been meaning to start. I go, oh, okay. How long have you been on tirzepatide for? About a year now. And how much weight have you lost? I've lost about, 200 pounds, 100 pounds, not 200 pounds, but 100 pounds, 10 stone or whatever. And I go, well, that's fantastic. But now you need to focus on building muscle. And they're like, but why? Because if you don't build muscle, your body will get to a point where it will go, okay, we will literally be gristle and bone if we continue to lose body fat. So your body will shut down fat burning because you are not protecting your metabolism. Your metabolism is at the core of everything you do. Your metabolism is the most important thing that you can build, protect, and look after. And because I speak to so many women on a GLP now, it's like I was chatting to a friend of mine, actually, a girl I was having a meeting with just before this, who's also a friend. And I said to her, it's so frustrating for me because I can't want this more for them than they want it for themselves. I said, these people are messaging me on GLPs and they want me to tell them, oh, what you need to do is switch to, Retatrutide, or what you need to do is add in cagrilintide, or you need to add in a little bit of MOTS-C. Like they're like, what peptide do I take now to boost fat burning? I'm like, why not just go to the fucking gym? They're like, it's too hard, And so my point is, muscle is the key to everything that you want. You want abs? Build muscle. You want your legs to be shredded? Build muscle. You want a better metabolism? Build muscle. You want to burn more body fat? Build muscle. You want to be stronger later in life? Build muscle. You want to have less inflammation? Build muscle. Your muscle releases anti-inflammatory cytokines into your bloodstream. The more muscle you have, the more anti-inflammatory cytokines are released into your body. The more fat you have, the more inflammatory cytokines are released into your bloodstream. Fat is inflammatory. Muscle is anti-inflammatory. Your body is a very perfect organism. So when you focus on building muscle, you override the metabolically inflammatory fat cells that are in your stomach, and your body finally releases them. That's what happens when you build muscle. So the secret, unfortunately, to everything that you want is time and muscle. Time and muscle. Time and muscle solves every single problem that I can think of in life. Time and muscle will solve your digestive issues. It will solve your inflammation issues. It will solve your everything that ends in itis is an inflammation, is an inflammatory response. Dermatitis, gingivitis, call me out another one. You know what I'm saying? Like any kind of itis is an inflammatory response in the body. If you focus on building muscle, you will lower your inflammatory response in your body, but you will also get rid of body fat. There is nothing you can do, Elizabeth, to go back to your question. There's nothing you can do to target the belly fat in your body except building more muscle. It's not that you're an androgen or an endomorph or an ectomorph. None of that matters. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. What overcomes everything is building muscle. What does it take to build muscle? You must strength train 3 to 5 times a week. I always recommend 5 because most women just don't train hard enough. So 3 just isn't enough for most women. You need to strength train 5 times a week. You need to eat good, nutritious, protein-rich food. And you need to do it for an unfathomably long period of time. Took me 3 years to shred a pinch of fat on my belly. 3 years. 3 years. There is no other way. I won't sugarcoat it for you. I won't pretend that there is. There's no other way. Of course, if it's inflammatory fat, if you're suffering from insulin resistance, you can take a GLP. I'm a massive advocate for GLPs, as you know. That will help with insulin resistance. That will help to a point. But as we see with all of the people who are massively overdosing on GLPs, it only helps to a point. And you will get to a point where your body will say, enough is enough. Now we need muscle. Focus on building muscle and the body fat will go. Amen. Ashley Findlay. I may be in the minority here, but I'm extremely quad dominant. They take over any exercise and grow the easiest for me. I've actually spent the last 10 years avoiding heavy quad exercises because my quads were enormous. However, I do want to grow my bum. Any tips for growing my glutes and not my quads? I'm going to take a drink of my tea. One second. If I don't drink my tea, then it goes cold. And then nobody likes cold tea. I started drinking tea because Tasha, my PA, drinks tea. And I drink coffee mostly, but she drinks tea. So sometimes we have a cup of tea together. So just thought I'd tell you. Okay. Any tips for growing my glutes, not my quads? Yeah, do glute exercises. Not quad ones. So the thing about training is, Ashley, you have to make sure when you're training, you're at the correct angle to grow your glutes. Your quads will only take over if you let them take over. So I am also quad dominant, and my quads want to take over an exercise. So I have to be very careful not to let them take over an exercise because your body will always choose the easiest path. So if you are doing an exercise, let's say you're doing a Bulgarian split squat, and you have very, very strong quads and your glutes are not as weak. You're not as strong. They're pretty weak or weaker. Your body is going to naturally try and shift into a position where your quads are doing a lot of the work because they are taking over the exercise. You have to not let your body do that by developing a huge amount of body awareness so that your glutes take the brunt of the work. So a couple of the mistakes I see people make, let's talk about a Bulgarian split squat, is first of all, if you lunge and push your knee over your foot that's in front, that will make it more quad dominant. So anytime you push the knee forward, whenever you're in a lunge position, and I mean actually try to push it forward, the quad stretches and lengthens and takes on more of the load. So in a Bulgarian split squat, you have to make sure that you have your body is slightly forward leaning, because if you can imagine, so say this is your leg and this is your upper torso and this is your head. If you're here doing a Bulgarian split squat, then the most effort in that is going to be on the quad, right? Because you're going up and down. If you tilt forward to here, now your glutes are in full stretch. And whatever muscle is in full stretch is the muscle that gets prioritized. So when your glutes are in full stretch, your body is going to prioritize, or at least it's going to equally prioritize the glutes as well as the quads. Now, that doesn't mean the quads won't get worked in a Bulgarian, because they will. So will the hamstrings and the adductors and even the calf muscles and the muscles in the feet. All of those muscles will get worked. But if you lean forward, you're going to put a big stretch on the quads, more torque on the glutes. So the glutes are going to get worked. You can shift yourself towards more glute dominant exercises and shift yourself away from more quad dominant exercises. Like, let's say you were in the gym on a leg press. If you're more quad dominant, you're naturally going to want to push through your toes more, because pushing through the toes more activates the quads. So when I'm doing a leg press in the gym, I have to make sure I almost lift my toes and push into my heels, because when my heels are pushed in, it activates my glutes more than my quads. The other thing you have to remember about different exercises is the glutes are a much bigger muscle group than the quads, and they can take an awful lot more load. So if you're in a lunge or a squat, your glutes are going to get worked, but your quads are the weakest element of the lunge or the squat. So your quads are going to tire and give out first. So whenever you're doing a lunge, for example, it's normally that your quads will start to tremble and they will give out and you won't be able to complete the exercises. However, your glutes still have more in the tank. It's the same as in Romanian deadlifts. In a Romanian deadlift, your hamstrings are going to give out before your glutes do. So they're going to force you to stop before your glutes or even have reached maximum failure. That's why I love hip thrusts, because hip thrusts, the quads cannot take over. Unless you have your feet too far back, like behind the knees, the quads won't take over. The glutes are the weakest part, are the weakest link in a hip thrust. Does use a little bit of hamstring, does use a little bit of quad, but it's predominantly glute. So the way you grow your glutes is by doing predominant glute exercises, first and foremost, but then also making sure that you are not prioritizing quads in other exercises to try to make it easier for yourself. And this requires an awful lot of discipline. Like whenever I'm doing any kind of lunge, if I'm doing a Bulgarian split squat or any kind of lunge, I twist my body over the leg that's in front. Because another thing that people tend to do is they tend to twist away from the foot in front without even thinking about it, because that takes the effort off the quads. But if your hips are level, right? If you twist this way and you make your hips unlevel, you're basically making the exercise easier. If you twist your body around the front leg, you're bringing your hips back in level, which means that you're going to be working the muscles more effectively. So you always want to ask yourself, are my hips in line? Am I leaning slightly forward in the exercises where it's possible to make sure I'm getting maximum glute activation? Am I pushing my knee over my toe? Because the exercises I've just been recording now for the 4-week More Muscle Challenge, the day 1 is quad focused day. And so a lot of the exercises, I'm giving specific cues to push the knee over the toe and to make sure that we're activating the quad. And let me tell you, my legs are so sore today. I can barely move. I'm always humbled by how hard you can make these dumbbell exercises. So it's just about mindfulness, really. So first of all, doing glute dominant exercises such as hip thrusts, first and foremost. But then in the other exercises, such as Romanian deadlifts or dumbbell deadlifts or any kind of lunges or step backs or anything like that, making sure that you are stretching into the glute effectively and making sure that the glute is getting the time under tension that it needs in order to grow. It just requires a lot of mindfulness. Julia Ockham. My question is about research. Kim, I love how you continue to research and learn more about peptides, health research, etc. You are open to trying new things and are always evolving. I'm a little bit of a lab rat, I have to say. What credible places do you get your research from? You've inspired me to do more research myself. This is a great question, Julia. So what I do is I read research papers online. And before ChatGPT, you just had to go and find them, and that was tough. But now with ChatGPT, if you're interested in a subject, you can just ask it to show you recent up-to-date studies. So I will search for things like, I will say, show me recent studies on the peptide SS31 or PT141. Show me human placebo-controlled studies that are the gold standard of studies that have been done on this particular research. Show me them in different countries. Even if you want, you can ask ChatGPT, if I wanted to research a subject, what are the things that I would ask? What are the things I would look for? And it will tell you what you should look for. And then you say, show me the research papers that, are to do with this. And then you have to ask it, this is really important, show me both sides. So you have to say, show me the pros, show me the research papers or the research studies that were done that showed the positives or showed the outcome that they wanted, and then show me the ones that showed the other side. And then the last thing that you have to ask whenever you're looking for research studies is it possible for you to tell me who funded the research? That is an extremely important question, because sometimes looking at the research just isn't enough. You have to look at who funded the research. Because years ago, there was a lot of studies started to show that tofu caused breast cancer. And we were like, tofu causes breast cancer? Like, there is nothing in tofu that would cause breast cancer. But what was happening was, whenever I started looking at the studies, and I did a podcast with James Wilkes, who is the what do you call it? That movie, The Game Changers. He is the director and producer of the Game Changers movie. He's actually a personal friend of mine now. We message all the time, but James goes massively into the studies, and he always says you have to look at who's funding the research. And whenever you dug into that research that showed that, they tried to show that tofu mimics estrogen in the body, and so therefore it, causes breast cancer. It doesn't. But what they showed in one very small study, which had like 32 people in it, because you have to look at the size of the studies too. So the bigger the control group, the bigger the size, the amount of people, and the longer the study is done for, the more trustworthy it is. If someone takes 32 people and there's no control group and they do like a little study, it doesn't mean that the data isn't relevant, but you have to see the data for what it is, right? What they saw was that tofu has a component which is the same as one of the components that is present in women who have breast cancer. It was something like that. That was the link that they made, right? And of course, what did they release? Tofu causes breast cancer. Tofu could cause breast cancer. Total and utter bullshit. Or soy could cause breast cancer. Total and utter bullshit, right? It was a jump from here to fucking Timbuktu. But of course, that's what the press latched onto. And so then for years, people were coming to me as a sculpted vegan and saying, I can't eat tofu because I've had breast cancer. I'm like, why would having breast cancer stop you from eating tofu? Oh, because my doctor told me to avoid it. I'm like, uneducated doctors watching TikTok for their medical information drives me bananas. But anyway, point is, you have to ask who funded the research, because what came out was, guess who had funded the research for soy causes breast cancer? The meat industry. All of the big studies that were coming out that said that soy causes breast cancer were actually funded by the meat industry. Now, why would the meat industry want people to think that soy causes breast cancer? Let me think. They were clearly just looking out for our health, right? So you have to look at who funded the research. And that is one thing I always ask. I ask myself this question. Imprint this in your brain in every single thing you do in life. Who would stand to gain from people believing this? Who would stand to gain? Financially, usually. Who would stand to gain? And if it's not the people that the study was done for, then you need to look deeper. It's like the whole push at the minute. People keep coming to me all the time and saying about Retatrutide. And people think it's called Retatrutide. It's not. It's Retatrutide. So people are coming to me all the time and asking about Retatrutide, which is a GLP-1. And they're saying, I'm on tirzepatide. I want to switch to Retatrutide. I'm afraid I'm going to lose muscle. It's going to preserve muscle. And I'm like, okay, you need to ask yourself this question. Who would stand to gain from everybody wanting to take Retatrutide? Do you know who? Retatrutide is the only GLP that the influencers can make money from online, because tirzepatide and semaglutide are pharmaceutically regulated. So they cannot be sold on research peptide websites. So they cannot make any money from them. So why do you think Every TikTok and Instagram influencer at the minute is going around talking about the incredible benefits of Retatrutide because they are financially invested. Because if you click their link and go through to the website, they receive a commission when you buy it. It's not that it is a superior GLP. In fact, from the 3,700 women I have in my group, I'm showing that there are a hell of a lot of side effects. Women are having random mid-month bleeding. It's causing spotting in a lot of women. It's causing anxiety. It's causing, because of how it releases, the liver releases glucagon, or because of it stimulates it to release glucagon, you basically become like a toddler having a sugar high. So it raises your blood sugar. It gives you heart palpitations. It's giving a lot of women rest. Now, not everybody, of course, but in a high percentage of women, it's making them feel anxious because it's raising their base heart rate as if they've had a shot of caffeine, which they are putting down to anxiety. There are a lot of side effects with Retatrutide. And it does not preserve muscle. That is bullshit. Like, no GLP causes muscle loss ever. Only if you stop training and you stop eating. So if you stop training and you stop eating, then yeah, you're going to have muscle loss. But whether you're on a GLP or not, that would happen. But of course, the whole narrative at the minute is GLPs cause muscle mass. Who would stand to gain? Well, the media want you to believe that so that, you know, they can sell more newspapers because scaremongering works. So media, right? So when I hear something, people are like repeat something all the time. I go, okay. Where did this come from? This bullshit. What media has now tried to sell more newspapers by scaremongering people, okay? Who would stand to gain? That's what you have to ask. Same with Retatrutide. Who would stand to gain? The Instagram influencers who are getting a commission from telling you that you should be taking Retatrutide. It's all bullshit. They know fuck all about GLPs. None of them. Anyway, off my horse now. That's what you have to ask, Julia. You have to ask not only show me the studies, how many people were in the studies, what were the results of the studies, both good and bad, and then you have to ask who funded the studies. And when you do that and you have enough of collective data, you can form an opinion. And that's really all my research is. It's just opinions. So I just say, based on what I've seen or based on what I've read, or, you know, and whenever you interact with as many people as I do in these tens of thousands of groups and the 3,700 I have on Telegram, you get a lot of data, right? You get a lot of anecdotal data. You get a lot of human user experience. And that's where a lot of my data comes from as well. It comes from just seeing and speaking to and interacting with and advising and helping a lot of people. So get really curious about people as well. That's another way you can do a lot of research. Get really curious about people. Join big groups that are talking about things that you're interested in and watch the conversations. Ask questions. Watch what other people are asking. Ask for, you know, does anyone have any side effects? And get really curious. That's how I am so well informed. Not because of the amount of research that I do, which is a lot, but it's also because of the amount of people I interact with on a weekly basis, which is tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands every year. And that's where I get a lot of my data. Amber Sweenor, you're asking a question about your husband. I'm really sorry I can't answer it because it's not part of this program. So I apologize. And he has not purchased the program. So to keep the integrity of it, I can't answer questions for our spouses. So I'm sorry about that. Hate saying no, but no. Melissa Harris, hope all is well with your new endeavors. Thank you. Oh, it's very exciting. We're gearing up now to get going with Randox Body, so that's really good. I have an odd question. I have uneven ribs from a snowmobile accident, and I am curious if there's any way to even out the look, rib flare unevenness, and if so, how can I achieve this? Melissa, you can't even out you can't even out bone structure, but you can become extremely aware of how you hold yourself through physiotherapy. My daughter has very bad scoliosis, and she was over the surgical threshold whenever we discovered it. But she didn't want to have an operation, and I didn't want her to have an operation. And so instead, she has been wearing a scolio brace for 3 years, which is pretty severe. And she's also been doing a certain physiotherapy called Schroth, right? Schroth physiotherapy. And she does it weekly. She's done it weekly for 3 years, and she does exercises every day. And she has managed, you would never know to look at her now. I'm going to show you a picture of her. You would never know to look at her that she has scoliosis. Her spine is completely bent, but you would never know she has scoliosis because she has learned to hold herself correctly. So it's not always about building muscle. It's about learning to hold yourself. So this was, let me show you a picture. This one's quite severe. Like I got her to, so this is what her little spine looked like whenever we found out. And I got her to just put her hands on her back and see how twisted she is. I have a good picture here. So what do you see? This is what she looked like. Do you see how bent she is? See your spine in the middle and how bent it is? Like it literally goes in an S shape. So that was her whenever we found out that she had scoliosis. And this is her. Let me see if I can show you. This is her now. So when you look at her from the back, and that's just her standing naturally, you wouldn't look at her and think, oh, she has scoliosis. Yeah, you can see one shoulder is slightly higher than the other, but she really has just learned to completely hold herself. And this is what her spine looked like whenever we first and that's it's a lot straighter than that now because she's worked at it. So she's almost out of brace. She'll be 6 months and she'll be out of brace now. And I've never known anyone as strong in my entire life. Honestly, she's incredible. I'll show you one more actually. Look how much she's managed to change her spine. So that was the first ever. This one here was the first ever thing she got, and then that's her now bending over. So you can just see how much her curve has improved. But that is actually from daily physio, believe it or not. That's not, and daily bracing, but that's actually more physio than it is. I'll go back to questions. That's more physio than it is anything else. So if you have uneven ribs, you can actually teach yourself to even your posture, to hold yourself differently, but you have to retrain yourself to hold yourself differently. I don't believe there's any particular muscle building thing that you can do. Maya trains in the gym every day and she actually has pretty sizable back muscles now. She didn't want to lose her back muscles from being in a brace. But if anything, because she has the curve in her spine, she has to be so careful not to pull unevenly, which is what tends to happen whenever you have an imbalance. So what I would recommend that you do is seek out some physio. Takes a lot of time. It's taken her 3 years and she does daily exercises, 30 minutes every morning. And she goes to Shroth, her physiotherapist, every Tuesday as well. But it can be done. It just takes an awful lot of time. Depends how much it bothers you, I guess. Melissa Harris. No, that was, sorry. Melissa was asking. Oh, she's one more question. A booty question. My innermost booty bits are taking the longest time to firm. I try to activate and it seems hard to turn on when concentrating. Any tips? I'm not sure what you mean by your innermost booty bits. I don't know whether you mean like inner cheeks or underneath your booty bits, but all I would say is as long as you're doing a whole range of different exercises, hip thrusts, abductions, kickbacks, donkey kicks, the sideline hip thrust, all the stuff that we do in this program, as long as you are doing those every day or 3 times a week, or really focusing on full stretch, full squeeze, working on the glutes, it will grow. It just takes a long time. Like my glutes have taken years and years and years to grow, and they have finally grown now. But God Almighty, it's been like 10 years of 10 years of hard work. So keep going. There's no advice I can give you other than keep going, keep focusing mind-body connection, keep squeezing and locking out the glutes, especially on your hip thrusts, and you will get there. Amber Swainor, I'm exploring the option of microdosing a GLP-1. I've gone to a clinic to ask about it previously, but didn't feel they were knowledgeable enough. You are right. Most of them are not. It seemed like they just wanted to recommend a standard dose to everyone. It's not that they want to recommend a standard dose to everyone. It's that they're not allowed to recommend anything other than a standard dose. So anyway, so I'll get to your question and I'll tell you what it is. Can you advise where we can get accurate information on how to effectively microdose, where to order, product quality? Yes, go and join my group. I will post a link to it. In fact, I'll post a link here. In fact, if one of the coaches are here, they can maybe do it, but I'll go into the chat anyway. There you are. So there is, it's in the chat, a link to my group online. If you join my group on Telegram, then you will get all of the up-to-date information about peptides. But let me just tell you quickly about a GLP. It's what a lot of people don't understand is that there's 2 types of prescribers. There's whenever you have a prescribing doctor, there's different levels of prescribing doctors. Like an esthetician, an aesthetics nurse. So Lisa, who's my aesthetics nurse from Face Therapy, she can prescribe GLPs, but she has to prescribe them on label. So that means they've gone through the standard trials, they have been prescribed at particular doses, and she can prescribe a GLP at a certain dose. She can say, this is recommended that you start at 2.5 milligrams if it's Trizipatide, and that's what you take every week until such a time, and then, you can increase. So she cannot tell someone to start at 5 milligrams because that's not the standard starting dose. Standard starting dose is 2.5. So she can only prescribe on label. She can only prescribe the way the drug was designed to be used. A level 3 prescriber, who is usually a doctor, who's a surgeon or a doctor, can prescribe off-label. So off-label means they can take a drug and they can say, I'm going to prescribe a GLP that's normally prescribed for people with diabetes or obesity, and I'm going to prescribe it for your menopause symptoms. But I don't want you to take the standard starting dose. I want you to take a microdose. So rather than starting on, 0.25 milligrams of semaglutide, I want you to start on 0.05 milligrams of semaglutide and see, does that help with your systemic inflammation, which is what semaglutide does. So a level 3 prescriber can prescribe off-label. So they can look at a client, or they can look at a patient and say, given the data that I have, do I believe that prescribing this drug off-label for this person will help with this symptom? And usually the rules of prescribing off-label are you have to be able to demonstrate that there was no other on-label drug that would have helped the patient with what it is they were suffering from. And if there is no other on-label drug that is a better fit for what they're suffering from, then you can prescribe off-label. Those are the rules around it. So if you went to a clinic, they most likely did not have level 3 prescribers. So it's not that they didn't want to prescribe for microdoses. They wouldn't have been legally allowed to. That's what a lot of people don't understand. They say, I went to my doctor and I asked about, microdosing, and they were, and they wouldn't let me microdose. I'm like, well, that's because they don't know anything about it. Doctors, doctors' ethics is first do no harm. So if they don't understand microdosing and they don't understand how it could be helpful for systemic inflammation and brain fog and sleep and digestion and pain in your feet and pain in your hips and pain in your ankles and all in your hands and shoulders and all the things that menopausal women suffer from, they're going to go, well, hang on, this is a diabetes drug or obesity drug. Why do you want to take it for this? I'm not going to prescribe it for you for menopause because you read on the internet somewhere that it was good for it. They'd be like, no, absolutely not, right? They're not going to put their ethical, moral standards on the line for something they know nothing about, as they well should not. So sometimes you have to go a little off the beaten track to get, the user data and experiment with things yourselves. Now, the other thing is you could have got that drug prescribed from that clinic and then just decided what you wanted to do with it yourself, which is what I did when I first got mine prescribed. I went and I saw a doctor and I was like, here's what you want. I want you to prescribe this for me. And I'm not going to take it on that dose. I'm going to take it at a microdose. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And here's why. And he was like, wow, you are so educated. I was like, yes, I am. And he said, you have educated me. So he was delighted to be educated on it. So you have to educate yourself and you have to take responsibility for your own choices, for your own life and for your own body. And don't expect a doctor to do it for you. And I think that a lot of us are brought up to believe that doctors are God. And the doctor says, so we must do as the doctor says, because we're taught to fear the teachers in school. And we're taught to fear our parents. And so these people in authority must, have full responsibility for my life and my body. And that's why a lot of us get into trouble as well, because we're not willing to take responsibility, which is not me. Whatever they tell me to do, I do the exact opposite because I'm number 3 in the birth order. And I was very defiant as a child and I continue to be defiant as an adult. So if they told me to do it, I did the opposite. Right. Carrie Ann Hill. Week 3, got messy, missed 2 sessions. Should I keep going in week 6? Oh, sorry. Week 6, she says. Got messy, missed 2 sessions. Should I keep going in week 6 or just start week 7 today and move on? Will it hurt my results? I know the sessions get harder and harder. My gut tells me just to move on and start week 7, but I don't want to hurt myself. No, they don't get harder and harder, Carrie. I think that people just get like more and more fed up and more calorie deprived. So if anything, I think that the sessions actually, it's not that they get harder per se, but there's kind of less cardio rest periods as the weeks go on. As far as I remember, I've actually stopped doing the butt camp now because I've had to start recording for the More Muscle Challenge. I was doing the butt camp with you guys up until now, so I would just draw a line under it. Like, you have to remember as well, this is a fat loss program, so this is a shred. Yes, you're building muscle in your booty and building muscle all over your body, but the diet part of it and the competition element of it is as shred. So if you want to stay in line with everybody else and you want to complete the program as it's designed to be completed, just let the 2 sessions go. Just let them go, right? It's not important. Your instinct is right. Just motor on with week 7 and put week 6 behind you and don't worry about it. Okay, Laurie has a question. Laurie says, lovely Laurie, this has been the most mentally and emotionally challenging challenge I have done. The doubt, the fear, and the worthiness. What has been your experience when prepping for shows? And did you experience any of these emotions? And if so, how did you cope? This challenge has been more than working out. So yes, Laurie, every single show, like every single show. And I think that, one of the things I've learned in life is we go through cycles. Sometimes we are on top of the world and we are feeling amazing and we're like so pumped and so excited and we can see the future and, we can imagine where we're going to go and how it's going to work. And then it just all falls to shit, right? And I remember seeing a great quote, a great interview with, I think they had like Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, um, Leonardo DiCaprio, can't remember, some famous actors, a group of famous actors in a room together. And they asked each of them if you could impart one piece of advice. I think Will Smith was there too. If you could impart one piece of advice to the people watching this, what would it be? And Tom Hanks, I'll never forget it. He said, the one thing I have learned in life that I would tell anybody, that if people could just understand this would change their life, it is, this too shall pass. And he said, we always think of that in terms of something hard. Like, you know, oh, I'm just going through this and this too shall pass. He said, one thing I've learned in life is this too shall pass. If you are going through the best time in your life, this too shall pass. If you're going through the hardest time in your life, this too shall pass. He said, every time I'm going through something, I remind myself, this too shall pass. And it always stuck with me because I thought it's so true. If we think back in all of the times in our lives when it's been really tough and it's been really hard. I saw another great quote this morning on Instagram and it said, you worry an awful lot for someone who's always managed to figure things out. You know, he's managed to figure every single thing out or something. And I thought, that's so true. You worry a lot for someone who's always managed to figure it out. And I just think this too shall pass is one of the best pieces of advice that anyone can ever give you. I was on holiday with my husband. This is what kind of a real significant moment for me. We were on vacation in 2019, I think it was. I think it was before COVID. Before COVID hit, I had, the business had really taken off. It had really started to build in 2018. I'd made my first million in 2018. 2019, things were fantastic. We'd launched different programs. We'd started to grow. One of my goals was to go and stay in the Marbella Club, which is now like my favorite luxury hotel. And it was to go and stay there. And I'd stayed there for a friend's 60th birthday. They had invited us along. They paid for us. We paid for our flights, but they paid for the hotel. And I remember being in this hotel and seeing all these people like just, you know, sauntering around in their designer gear, you know, just like wearing Chanel like it was, you know, just like at breakfast, you know, it was just like so normal. And, you know, it wasn't like they had their one designer handbag. It was like they were just so effortlessly rich that it didn't matter like how much anything cost, you know. And I remember going there and feeling like such an imposter. You know, I went with my one designer handbag, which I took everywhere with me, and everyone had like their designer beach bags and their designer these and whatever. I'm not saying that these things are cool, but I felt very out of place. And I really was beginning to build a business at the time. And I remember thinking, I will come back here one day. And I said to Ryan, this was in 2017, I think we went. And I remember saying to Ryan, we will come back here in 2000. We will come back here one day and we will stay in a suite and we will have all of our designer gear and we will be here like we belong. We will belong here. Because all these women were like, you know, these beautiful women walking around the pool, tanned and bronzed and, you know what I mean? Like, and just beautiful hair, manicures, pedicures, you know, designer bikinis. And I said, we will come here and we will belong. And that was a dream of mine. It was a goal of mine. And so I worked really, really hard. And in, I think, June 2019, we went to the Marbella Club and we stayed in a suite. And we went into the gift shop that was there. It was like a boutique and I was able to buy anything that I wanted. And I really felt like, yes, I have made it. And we were on the beach one day and I ordered champagne. And I said to Ryan, let's have a glass of champagne. And they have the beautiful beach club, you know, it's all part of the hotel, private beach. And I ordered some champagne and they brought it over in a tray and set it down. And I said to Ryan, cheers. And I held up my glass. I think it was the first day we were there. I said, cheers. And he said, cheers, Kimmy. Here's to you. You made this happen. So proud of you. And I said, you know why I'm saying cheers? I said, because this too shall pass. I said, all good things must come to an end. And he was like, what? Like, it's our first day. We just got here. And I said, no, but what you have to, I said, one thing I do know is we have to enjoy this moment, the pinnacle of where I have, you know, managed to get to or whatever in the company, because this will pass. And at some point in the future, it's all going to come crashing down. Everything that goes up must come down. That is the law of the universe. What goes up must come down. So what I have learned in life is when you're feeling good, you grab it by the balls. You make it happen. You embrace every fucking moment of it because this too shall pass. The higher you go, the harder you will fall. And when you get there, you have to not panic, not worry about it, not make it mean anything more other than this is the yin and the yang of life. The higher you go, the harder you fall. And I cheersed my husband with a glass of champagne, sitting at the pinnacle of what I had managed to achieve in my life, saying, at some point, this is going to come crashing down. He was like, I don't understand you. You're weird. So anyway, the next thing that happened was what happened between 2019, 2020, COVID. COVID hit. I nearly lost my company. Everything. I had 100 grand on a credit card bill, invested in a launch that I couldn't afford to pay. I literally thought I was going to lose my company. And I remember looking back to that time in Marbella and laughing and thinking, oh, wow, like the premonition that I made came true. It's, everything that goes up must come down. Last year, I had the hardest year of my life. I nearly lost my company. I didn't nearly go bankrupt, but I had to clear my entire company in order to stay afloat. I had to strip apart everything that I thought I knew. I had to change my entire life. And then this year, I'm going into business with $1 billion company who are paying me $3 million to build the app that I always have wanted to build and giving me a 50% equity share in it. Like, you couldn't get more chalk and cheese, but and I'm delighted and I'm reveling in this and I'm loving this place that I'm in my life where everything is building and growing and it's fantastic and it's wonderful. My family are amazing and my relationship with my husband is amazing. We just came back from another, 5 days in the Marbella club. But I know now through the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs of running this crazy business these last 10 years that this too shall pass. So what I'm doing at the minute is I am enjoying this ride. I am languishing in it, wallowing in it, enjoying every single second of it, because I know the higher you go, the harder you fall. And at some point, this is going to come crashing down again. Now, I don't mean crashing down as in losing my company, but that will never happen again because I'll never make the same mistake twice. I think I've made it 3 or 4 times actually, but I'm definitely not going to make it a 5th. So, but you just have to accept that this is a shitty time. Shit. And life is sometimes shit, but you can't appreciate the good without the bad. They always say your emotional bandwidth is exact. If this is you in the middle, if this is the extent to which you allow yourself to feel pain, then you can only feel joy the same extent on the other side. If you allow yourself to feel this much pain and you really sit in the pain and you feel the pain and you cry and you like despair and you allow yourself to feel the magnitude of how shit life is, you can feel this much joy on the other side. You can't squash your ability to feel pain and have a full bandwidth of joy on the other side. The emotional bandwidth is complete. The extent you allow yourself to feel it on one side is the extent you can feel it on the other side. And one thing I have learned about life is challenges happen, shit happens. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. When it's great, grab it by the balls and enjoy it. And when it's bad, put your head down and just know this too shall pass. It doesn't mean it's forever. It doesn't mean it's even for the next 6 months. It just means it's for now. And whatever you can do to get through it, you get through it. And you will turn a corner and life will be on the up again at some point. Don't make it mean anything, I think is what I'm trying to say. Don't make it mean anything other than this is life. And, we've all been around the blocks. You're like, we've all had kids and grandkids and, and had ups and downs and divorces and marriages and deaths. And, none of us here are young women. We're all mature women, right? And so you don't need me to tell you this, but sometimes it's good to have a reminder. Sometimes I need to remind myself. I need to say to myself, you know what, Kim, your ability to get through hard days so far is 100%. 100%. Your track record for making it through shitty times is 100%. So you just got to keep your head down. Keep going with this. One foot in front of the other. Keep the routine. Give yourself a break if you need it. Take a day off if you need it. Give yourself some, nourish your soul if you need it. Sometimes you regroup, rechange. Let me tell you one more story before we go. I lost my Instagram account, which you guys probably know. Or if you don't know, you probably are following me going, where is Kim? Where is Kim? Like, why is she not on Instagram? Well, Kim is on Instagram. I have another account called Kim Constable Official. Do you know, it was really funny. I was driving home. It was the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. I was driving home with my daughter from her show jumping lesson with 2 horses in the trailer on the back. And I'd posted a reel earlier on that day. And I thought, I'll see how my reel's doing. So I flicked open my phone and said, here, Maya, look at that reel and tell me how it's doing. And as I glanced at my phone as I hung it over, it said, your Instagram account has been disabled. And I was like, what? And I went, oh my God. And she said, what? I was like, they've disabled my account. Now, I knew I'd been skating the line, with peptides, and I have so many haters who report everything I do. So I knew I'd been kind of, riding close to the line with the peptides because the haters kept reporting everything and getting my post taken down, then reinstated. It'd been going on for a while. And I said, my account has been disabled. And you know the first thing that I felt whenever I saw that? I was telling this to my coach last night, and she said, horror? And I was like, no, relief. Relief. The first thing that I felt when I realized my Instagram account had been taken down was relief. And it was such a weird feeling for me. I was like, why do I feel relief? Like, I had 4.2 million followers in that account. I'd spent 15 years building it up, and I felt relief. And I thought to myself, then my next thought was, well, what if this was meant to be? I believe that life happens perfectly, exactly as it's supposed to. What if this is meant to be? What if this is the death of the sculpted vegan? Because I'm now moving into Randox body. I'm going into business with $1 billion pharmaceutical company. You know, what if this was meant to be? What if this was just the death of the sculpted vegan? And so I didn't worry about it. I didn't panic. I was like, oh, well, it's only an Instagram account. Like, it's not life or death. And so I just activated one of my other accounts, which I had. I'd set it up for Only Fitness when I thought it was going to launch. Another failed business. And so I activated that one. And literally within like 3 days, I had 400,000 followers. And you know what the really interesting thing is? I'm having so much more fun in this Kim Constable account than I ever did with the Sculpted Vegan account, because I used to get so much hate in the Sculpted Vegan because the vegans all used to follow me, the devout vegans, and then they would come in and punish me for not being vegan enough and they would go, are those vegan leather shoes you're wearing? I'm like, I don't know, right? Fuck off. So I used to get people, then bodybuilders used to come in and hate on me. Well, if she just had a bit of meat, we might listen to her, and like nothing I said. I got a lot of people didn't take me seriously. And whenever I started talking about peptides, I got a lot of, well, what does the vegan know about peptides? Like, she doesn't even know how to eat a proper diet, like all of the haters. Whereas this new account, every time I check it, I'm like, shit, I'm getting like 100 followers every hour. And they're like these massive names in the industry. Like, these people are following me. I'm like, oh my God, this person just followed me. Like, I have like revered this person for years. They are like a longevity doctor. I have all of these incredible doctors and physicians and massive influencers, and like Mel Robbins followed me yesterday. I was like, Mel Robbins followed me. So it's incredible. None of this happened with the Sculpted Vegan, but it's happening now with Kim Constable Official, because I am Kim Constable in my own right. I am not the Sculpted Vegan anymore. I am now Kim Constable Official. And I have a legal team working to get it back, and they said I should get it back this week. And I was like, I don't even want it back. Ryan was like, sell it. My husband was like, sell it. Sell the account. You can sell your Instagram accounts. He was like, sell the account. And people will just wipe it and then just start posting things on it. And people will be like, why am I posting this? Why am I following this person? I don't even know who this is. But it's because it was a Sculpted Vegan and they bought it. So he was like, sell it. I don't even want it back anymore. And so you can look at things in two ways. You can look at something and say, oh my God, this is awful and this is shit and I feel so terrible. I don't know why this is happening and whatever. Or you can say, oh, well, maybe this is happening for a reason. I don't know why I feel this way, but I'm sure it's going to appear to me at some point, the reason, and it's all going to become clear. And I definitely feel like I'm going through a rebirth at the minute. And since I lost that Instagram account, it was like I killed a little part of that identity, that Sculpted Vegan identity. And I'm now moving into this new Kim Constable identity, which is so much cleaner and fresher and newer and has so much better engagement and so much more credibility. And it's perfect. So sometimes the worst things that happen to us are actually the best. We just don't know it. But if we open our eyes and see the opportunities and see the possibilities that exist in the bad things that happen, and we look for the opportunity in the bad. That's what I did during COVID when I nearly lost my company. I was like, there has to be an opportunity in this crisis. There's always an opportunity in the crisis. Where's the opportunity? And I sat up one night looking at all of the opportunities, all the good things that were happening in the world because of COVID. And I realized, shit, home programs. People can't go to the gym. They need money and they need home training. So why don't I create a program that will give them a big cash prize, motivation to do things at home. We had many challenges throughout it, and a home training program with a really simple diet plan that doesn't require a lot of complicated ingredients. And so we created the Jailhouse Shred in 2 weeks, from idea to launch in 2 weeks, and we made $250,000. Got me out of a financial hole, and then we went on to launch 11 programs in 12 months in that COVID year, doubled the turnover of the business. There's an opportunity in every crisis. So every time you're going through a crisis, ask yourself, where's the opportunity? Where is the opportunity? If you look for it, you will find it, because in every single crisis, there's an opportunity to do better, be better, serve people better. You just have to focus on the opportunity and not focus on the crisis. And when you do that, I promise you, your life will change. You haven't heard a wee Kim singing for a while, have you? But I'm singing a lot in this new program. I can tell you there's a lot of singing happening. So there you are. That was a wee good Q&A. I really like that one today. Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, just loved having you all here. Loved being back. Thanks for letting me go on holiday last week. I really needed it. Came back all like energized and refreshed. So, and it's bright. Look, it's still bright here in Belfast. Look. And it's like 5 o'clock and it's now like bright in the morning. I get up and I open the curtains at 7 a.m. and it's bright. I love bright mornings. So opportunity, you say, look for the opportunities in every crisis and you'll always do well in life. Okay, guys, thank you so much for the questions. Thank you for being here. Love you all so much. Sending you all hugs and kisses. See you next week for another Q&A. Smash your week. Just keep going. Get the head down. One foot in front of the other. One workout after the other. You'll get to the end, I promise. And you'll look back and be so proud of yourselves. So don't give up now. See you all next week for another Q&A. See everybody waving. Bye, team. Take care. Love you all so much.